Good afternoon. Thank you all for being here. I'm pleased to be joined by Corrections Director Joe Allbaugh to announce the state's plans for moving forward with capital punishment in Oklahoma. After many hours of research, deliberation, and conversations with the director, attorneys, and other stakeholders, we believe the best protocol to develop for executions in the state is inert gas inhalation. For the remainder of this discussion, I will refer to it as IGI. Also, let's be clear. I want everyone to understand that we are at the very beginning of this process, so we may not have all answers to your questions, but we will provide updates as they become available. We want to proceed in the most transparent way possible. We have selected this method because of the well-documented fact that states across the country are struggling to find the proper drugs to perform executions by lethal injection. Oklahoma is no exception, and Director Allbaugh will discuss this shortly. I think Supreme Court Justice Samuel Alito summed it up best in 2015 during arguments in Glossop v. Gross, when he said, opponents of capital punishment are waging a guerrilla war against the death penalty, which consists of efforts to make it impossible for states to obtain drugs. I think every state in the nation that is trying to obtain the drugs will agree with Justice Alito. As you know, in Oklahoma, a bill that was signed back in 2015 by the governor states that if lethal injection is held unconstitutional or is unavailable, an execution shall be carried out by nitrogen hypoxia. We are exercising that option. Executions are the most profound application of state power. Additionally, the people of Oklahoma spoke clearly when an overwhelming majority of the electorate voted to amend the Constitution and guarantee the state's power to impose capital punishment 2 years ago. As state leaders, it is our duty to find an effective and humane manner that satisfies both the Constitution and the court system. I believe in capital punishment as appropriate for dealing with those who commit these horrible crimes. I also believe in justice for victims and their family. It is important that we keep the families and loved ones of victims in mind. The families who continue to suffer knowing that proper justice has yet to be carried out. This morning I spoke with families of victims of the death row inmates who have exhausted all of their appeals to inform them that we are being proactive in our responsibility in moving forward with this new protocol. I understand some of their frustrations that it has taken so long, but as I assured them, although this process is just beginning, we are turning to this method to carry out the justice that is due them, justice for them and for the many years of pain and suffering they have endured after losing a family member or a loved one to a heinous act. We can no longer sit on the sidelines and wait to find drugs. Using an IGI will be effective, simple to administer, easy to obtain, and requires no complex medical procedures. Well-documented research has shown individuals who are exposed to excessive amounts of inert gas experience fatigue, dizziness, perhaps a headache, loss of breath, and eventual loss of consciousness. If oxygen does not displace the inert gas within the individual's system, in just a few minutes, death will occur. This is the safest, the best, and the most effective method available, and we're moving forward. I will now turn to Director Allbaugh to discuss the process. Director?
I came to the department January 8th of 2016, and ever since that date, I've been in the mad hunt for drugs to perform lethal injection executions in Oklahoma. Today, we're deciding that we're not going forward with that any longer. I got to the point in finding these drugs that I was calling all around the world to the back streets of the Indian subcontinent to procure drugs. One of the things that jumped out at me at the grand jury report that came out in May of, I think, 17, was the lack of total transparency. The general alluded to transparency earlier. I can't think of anything that should inhibit total transparency on something as serious as an execution of a human being. So, for the better part of 2 years and about 45 days, my discussions with individuals, seedy individuals who had access to drugs, even other states that had access to drugs, has all proven for naught. What came out of that conversation to me, and I shared it with General Hunter, was there was no way to assure chain of custody, which leads to a lot of problems, let alone just the multitude of issues that can come up inserting an IV to administer the drugs. As you know, the attorneys and the inmates themselves have become very smart in not hydrating days, weeks up to the execution date, making it more difficult to insert needles. You saw last week in Alabama, inmate was being they attempted to put him to death, and he was punctured 11 times. I think that's inhumane. With inert gas inhalation, after a couple of breaths, the individual loses consciousness, doesn't feel any pain. Now, we're just beginning. We're not sure how this is going to unfold, so I can't answer all of your questions. We just made this decision here in the recent past, a few days ago, last week, I think. At any rate, we have started this process already to explore. If you look at the law, this is the next method of execution after lethal injection. So we're just taking those in order. We're one of 30-plus states that allows the death penalty to be carried out. I'm only concerned about one state right now, Oklahoma, to do it properly, fully transparent, and as humane as possible. And thank you all for coming today.
Thank you. Director and I will be happy to answer your questions as we're able to.
Nitrogen gas has never been used to execute a human before, at least no known cases, and the American Veterinary Institute recommends that it not be used on certain animals. How can you be certain that this method will be effective, painless, and constitutional if it's never been used before?
So there is significant documentary evidence. There is a good deal of experience based on inert gas inhalations used with regard to assisted suicide. So it is a common procedure in states and in countries that allow for assisted suicide. So in supporting the director's development of the protocol, we'll be certainly relying on the experiences that exist with regard to its use in assisted suicides. And there are numerous case studies there that will assist our efforts to get the protocol perfected and approved.
How long do you think it will take? What do you expect?
We're just starting, as I said. I'm hoping to have something of a preliminary fashion in the next 90 to 120 days. And if that's acceptable, then the Attorney General and his attorneys will move forward to the courts.
How many inmates are currently eligible?
On death row, 49.
They're all eligible?
No, only 16 have exhausted all of their,
I think it's 17.
17? Great, 17.
There was one in federal custody, I believe, Director.
Okay, in Oklahoma, it's 16. No, we're just starting today. I mean, it was just since the,
You said inert gas rather than nitrogen. Is it talking about more than possibly? Is it nitrogen we're talking about? Or is it other gases besides nitrogen?
argon, helium, nitrogen, they're all inert gases. I think the reason that nitrogen was suggested in the statute is when you buy gas in the industrial world, that's the cheapest gas available.
Do we have to have a law change if we're talking about inert gas versus nitrogen or not?
I'll let the
So,
attorney
so
say.
Director, I think that it was our approach that we wanted to allow the protocol maximum latitude with regard to the availability of inert gases. Our research, preliminary research indicates that nitrogen is the most easily obtainable, but it may be that if we look at other inert gases that there will be a need for a change in the statute. But as it stands now, nitrogen is going to be the preferred gas in IGI.
So you don't need to change the law right now. I mean, you can do an execution. You don't have to wait for the legislature. If the protocol is developed and the legislator's out of session, you don't have to wait till it's back in session to go ahead.
No, if the protocol is developed, if nitrogen is used, if we run the gauntlet of federal and state court review, that'll be the method of execution, again, based on the work of the director.
What modifications do you have to make to the death chamber?
I don't have the foggiest idea yet. You're going to ask me all questions, even you, Sean, what a surprise, questions I cannot answer right now, but as the General said earlier, we will keep you posted in this process, what we learn, what we can do, what we can't do, and again, it gets back to transparency. This is all about transparency. Yes, ma'am.
Are you hoping to resume executions by the end of this year, or?
I am hoping to do so. Don't hold me to the end of the year, but as quickly as possible. Once we have confidence and talk to the necessary experts, which we're trying to pull together.
The Death Penalty Review Commission in Oklahoma, in April, one of the recommendations was a third-party review of executions. Is that something
Not necessary.
you're open to?
No, not necessary.
From a cost point of view, how will this stack up against lethal injection? Will this be a cheaper alternative or still comparable?
Well, it'll be definitely less expensive. These drugs, one of the things that I found, you talk about Pinto and the other drugs that you use in the 3-drug protocol, I mean, they know what the demand is and they jack the price up.
Are you worried about being the first to try something?
I'm not worried about anything. What I am worried about is being able to carry out our responsibility in a humane, efficient manner. That's all we're charged with doing.
Can you talk a little bit about what you anticipate in terms of how long legal challenges could go on? And would this apply only to newly sentenced inmates, or could this potentially method be used to execute any inmate that had already received a death sentence?
So the answer, to begin with your last question, it would apply to any inmate for whom the death penalty, for who has received a death sentence. Where we are with regard to timing is we'll work with the director in a hand-in-glove fashion to complete the protocol, hopefully within the time frame he's described. Then we will need to advise the attorneys for the individuals on death row of the new protocol. So that's a federal court matter. Fairly simultaneous with that, we'll advise the criminal court, the Court of Criminal Appeals. And so the stay that's in place is 150 days. So the time frame is completing the protocol, 150-day stay, and there'll be simultaneous, we believe, federal court review during that time period. So do the math. You've got 3-4 months, and then you've got 150 days. So that's the that's the shortest period of time within which the sentences can be scheduled and executions can be scheduled.
Do you expect it could be, this could linger in the federal court system for a long period of time, or do you think it could?
So our approach to this is to be expeditious about it. That's all I can say. Federal judges are appointed for life. They don't report to me, frankly, anybody else. So
When was the last
they've got
time
their own
gas
schedule.
was utilized in Oklahoma for an execution?
When was the last time gas was used?
Uh-huh.
I don't have the answer to that question.
I don't believe it has been used. It's always been the it's always been the electric chair. I don't believe gas has ever been used in Oklahoma.
Why this method? I think you have a couple of options. Wasn't the firing squad one, the electric chair one? Why this?
Yeah, we don't talk about the firing squad. How dare you bring that up?
So
The Eighth Amendment requires that these matters, that an execution occur consistent with the prohibition in the Eighth Amendment from cruel and unusual punishment. So as the director and I evaluated the options, and we looked at the experience that exists, documented experience that exists with the use of inert gas inhalation with assisted suicides, when we looked at the narrative that it is around individuals who've dealt with oxygen hypoxia and the sensations that they feel before, recovering, whether they're jet pilots or, again, people in a situation where oxygen's being displaced in their body. Those sensations are well documented. Essentially, what you see and what you can glean from these stories is that in a very short period of time, you go to sleep.
How is this inert gas administered? I mean, is it through a mask, or are you in a chamber, or how is it administered?
So I think the director, I don't want to speak for the director, but I think your view is that a mask, the thought is a mask needs to be developed, and that'll be a careful, precise process. But that's the means by which an assisted suicide occurs.
You said you
Time for about 2 more questions. We gotta get General Hunter out of here.
You said you met with family members of victims.
Conference
earlier.
call this morning.
What are their thoughts on this execution method? Any of them give their opinions?
So I will just report that the call this morning with the affected families was emotionally challenging. The pain that these families continue to suffer as a result of these crimes is palpable, whether it's in person or over the phone. The assurance I gave them is that working with the director, we're going to move as quickly and as expeditiously, but as thoughtfully and transparently as possible to put these executions back on track and for the executions to be done in a legal and constitutional way. I gave them my assurances, and I thought we had a lot of support this morning, but they're ready to move on with their lives, and until justice is meted out, they really don't feel like they can. Question over here.
Do you ever think about talking to the families of the people on death row?
What's the point of your question?
You know, ever talk to them about the method of how they're...
let me address that if you don't mind. I think one of the things that gets lost in this process are the families of the victims. You'll write your stories and produce them for the news tonight. Probably not even talk about the victims. I can't underscore what General Hunter's alluding to in this conference call, the amount of pain and suffering. That seems to be forgotten when we worry about these individuals on death row. Totally forgotten. Look at how many of these individuals have become famous because of this. Never mentioning the victims nor their families. To me, that's a travesty. And in order to put a stop to that, that's one of the reasons that I've agreed to move forward to explore this new protocol. We've waited too long. It's been, what, almost 3 years since the glossip? It's
So-
time to move forward.
So the director has used the word transparency several times this afternoon. I just want to underscore that. This isn't occurring under cover of darkness. We have just made this decision collectively in the last week or 10 days, so we're announcing that this process is beginning. And the work that needs to be done is something that we're going to be thoughtful and orderly about. It's important to get this right in the state. So I didn't mean to be short with you. I'm a public servant, and when individuals seek to get my attention, whether it's this or something else, I try to make myself available.
Those people are on death row. It's not their fault that the person committed that crime.
Well, there are a lot of victims when this happens. Anybody else?
What are the next steps in your process?
Have a ton of meetings.
Yeah. So again, we're just announcing the beginning of a process, and meetings, getting the best minds possible, making sure that we've got equipment that's
My last question.
carefully tailored to the responsibilities of the state, which are solemn and profound.
You described the conversation this morning as emotionally challenging with the families of the victims. Did you get a sense of any of them are experiencing relief that the process is moving forward now?
I think that's a fair assessment that I would say collectively from the people on the call. Thank you for your question. Thanks very much for
Thank
your
you.
time today. Appreciate it a lot. Thanks.
After you on first. After you on second.